You asked for it, you got it. Basketball content here on the Florida Atlantic Voice as we don't necessarily make the full transition. That won't come until December, but we definitely put our other foot into the basketball pool here on the Florida Atlantic Voice. Football, men's basketball, that was the purpose of the podcast, and now we're experiencing the overlap for the first time in just over a week's time. Florida Atlantic Voice presented by Robes Law Group, putting the community first. RobesLawGroup.com, ROBES, RobesLawGroup.com, offices in Delray Beach. Robes Law Group, proud sponsor of the Florida Atlantic Voice. So at the time of recording, Florida Atlantic football 2-5 on a bye week. They'll be back at it. Homecoming November 1st, Friday night. South Florida comes into FAU Stadium. We'll have a whole lot leading into that game, and FAU trying to salvage this 2024 season. But it'll be just a couple of days after that. November 4th, Monday night, Xenia, Ohio, at the John Wooden Fieldhouse. Brand new FAU and Indiana State to start the 2024-2025 season, and it's going to be the head coaching debut of John Jakus. Now, Jakus does have head coaching experience many years ago as a head coach in Europe, but at the college level did, upon a Scott Drew ejection, lead Baylor to a win last season in Big 12 play. So that is the extent of John Jakus' college head coaching experience, at least at the Division I level. But, well, at least there is some. So John Jakus will lead his basketball team. New look, FAU, new era. The Final Four core is all but gone. And now John Jakus has rebuilt the roster, and you will start to hear names that'll become household, like, yes, Baba Miller, like Ken Evans, like Kiki Tandy, and you go down the line. And, of course, some of the few holdovers who have had really good camps. Devin Vanterpool is one of them. Trey Carroll, another. So, again, there will be a couple of familiar faces, but for the most part, brand new roster for FAU. And, again, it starts November 4th against Indiana State. John Jakus, what a fascinating guy. He is someone that is devout in his faith, in his religious beliefs, but someone who also has the ability to cross a whole lot of spectrums. If you knew anything about college basketball coaching circles the last couple of years, and I don't expect that any of you would, I'm just giving you a little bit of insight. The name John Jakus came up consistently as one of the top assistant coaches, top recruiters in all of college basketball, and was a constant in conversations about taking some pretty high-profile college basketball head coaching jobs. Based on what I knew of John Jakus going back a couple of years, and then the fact that he is the new head coach at Florida Atlantic, it's a coup. I don't quite know how Brian White pulled it off. It was an incredible piece of sorcery, but John Jakus at Florida Atlantic is there are a lot of programs that wish that they would have proverbially pulled the trigger on bringing John Jakus in and didn't let him get to Florida Atlantic. But John Jakus is a fascinating person who has a background that is rooted in self-exploration, someone who, based on experiences, it has taught him a lot about the world. He is worldly, based on all of his travels. Someone who has met an awful lot of adversity, especially within his family, has had to overcome that. It's really shaped him, not only as a person, but also as a coach. And every single season, you basically bring in a new family. That's sort of the approach with John Jakus. He uses the word love an awful lot. He makes sure that everybody around him in his orbit, they know he has their back. There's a loyalty that immediately comes with knowing John Jakus. Oh, and by the way, he's got a hell of a basketball mind. the trademark of a John Jakus basketball team is very, very much like the trademark of a Gonzaga team where he was, trademark of a Baylor team where he was. Physical, play hard, and extremely long. This is far and away the longest basketball team that FAU has ever put on the floor coming up in this 2024-2025 campaign. But what John Jakus has done is he's also brought a bit of a new age analytical and NBA mindset to FAU basketball, and had a chance to talk to him in depth about this approach to his players, the relationships he builds, what the identity of this team is going to be, but also how he has already instilled belief using some pretty outside the box tactics that we've never seen at Florida Atlantic before, even in the Dusty May era, to show tangible improvement player by player, practice by practice, sequence by sequence. This is one of the most detailed oriented people that I've ever come across, that I've ever run into, that I've ever known. It's really, really impressive to know, to understand the process of John Jakus and the process, especially as it pertains to each and every individual on this FAU basketball roster. There have been a lot of discussions with John Jakus already. I don't think there's been one as revealing as the one you're about to hear on the Florida Atlantic Voice. Here is FAU head coach John Jakus. First go around in charge of your own program, and at the time we're talking, they're still a month out from the season, but and you had the summer period, but now getting into camp. What has it been like for you personally to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's my own program. I think it's us. It's a we thing. And my job's to serve more than anything. So I believe in servant leadership, and I think that's been really natural. Most of the staff I knew before I got here, and then you're adding TA and Riggs and Zebo, who are all great at their job. I mean, TA's coaching a Final Four. It's not like he's going to make me dumber. He's going to do better. And so I feel great about that. And then the thing I probably feel best about is how the guys are getting along. I mean, I don't know how many interviews you are into this deal.
They've all said it to a T. 5 guys have come through and said, we're tight.
Yeah, this is one of the closest teams I've ever been around, and we've done it with 10 guys from the portal, 6 internationals mixed in, 7 if you count a Canadian.
Right.
And I'm just really proud of that. And this dysfunctional college basketball culture, if you can love each other and keep your locker room pure and out of the noise, and you just really care about winning and each other, you're going to be fine. So I think we're ahead of the curve, and now we just got to do that as the lights come out,
Yeah. I'm going to just move this real quick up to you. There we go. So when it comes to coming together off the floor, so that first part is extremely important, and it seems like that has passed every single test. How does that apply to on the floor then when things get tough, adversity hits, the coming together off the floor and coming together on the floor where maybe things get scrappy or these guys know, hey, we have your back in tough moments? Is that the same exact wavelength, or is that a little extra then that needs to come with the relationship between players?
No, there needs some extra. I mean, you guys experienced that probably 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you saw yourselves win Conference USA and then making a run in the NCAA tournament. There was moments on the floor that triggered that.
Yeah, right.
At Baylor, it's like we didn't know how to win. And I remember we beat Villanova in the Thanksgiving tournament, and they had won some championships, and it felt like we had figured out that day what it meant to win. And so until we do that together, all we're really boasting about, which we shouldn't be boasting about anything at all right now, is the fact that we care about each other. But the triggers that make it real on the floor don't happen until you play in public and you play against other people. So we'll start that next week with Paradise Madness with the public part, and then the playing against other people will come real quick.
Everybody that has come through here that has talked to me to this point has said, hey, defensively, this is going to be important for this group. Like they all have. I figured I'd pass that along because that would make you supremely happy, but that appears to be on the forefront of everybody's mind right now that's come through. How much of that have you been drilling in here, not only in the summer? I mean, obviously you're trying to set the base, but here early part of fall camp as well.
To be honest, I don't do it in the summer. Summer is 4 months of player development, and I think we got to max out who it is that you coach.
Sure.
The better your groceries are, you probably heard that illustration before, the better the team's going to be. You got to go shopping for your own groceries, which we did in the portal, but then you've got to improve them. And I just feel great about that. So once the fall hits, though, it's okay, we can score. Okay, we're going to score. Now, can we defend? And can we make the offense easier by forcing turnovers? And we've spent a lot of time this fall on stealing whole possessions. As much as I'm into analytics, and this shot is a 0.8, and this is a 0.6, and that's a 1.2. We're not trying to flirt with forcing shot selection right now. We're trying to really hammer home, can we steal whole possessions? And I hope that they're bought into that, because I think we're long enough, wingspans, athleticism, it's all there to protect the rim and still get out and cause people some turnovers.
How do you, because this is not just isolated FAU. This happened to you at Baylor with turnover and Gonzaga with turnover. Every athlete probably needs a little bit coaching in a different way. There's a lot of different personalities, a lot of different consumption of information, and then applying it. In this, where it's expedited and you've got an entirely new group and everybody's still getting to know one another, how do you and the staff personally handle, all right, he needs this, he needs this, he needs this, and you're sort of expediting the process there?
Yeah, we actually had a meeting last week after we scrimmaged, and we sat down for probably 90 minutes, and we went one by one, everybody on the team. How do we best love them? What's going on in their life off the floor? How are their academics? Where are their relationships? Where's their health? What can we, and we just, how can
sort
we
of like a game plan of the roster?
Yes. What's our game plan with each kid off the floor? Then who's taking on what responsibilities that our trainer, our strength coach can't do? What falls in the other purviews? And then how can we do that well? And then I think we spend as much time with their film and individual development as anybody. And if you do that, then they feel like you're really taking care of them. But the worst thing you could do right now is not have plans for kids off the floor where they don't feel like you really care about them, because you can't play them all.
Right.
I think you don't care about them and they're not playing, they're going right back in the portal. So we're going to make sure that the bulk of what we do, especially up to this point, is they know we care about them.
The other than you, just from the outside being the face of FAU basketball, there's Baba as well. And so there's going to be a lot of expectation for Baba Miller, and he's sort of the name that everybody's associating now. When it comes to him and maximizing what he is and him fully taking advantage of this situation, how is the give and take between you and Baba? New situation. He has aspirations, obviously, as a lot of these guys do, but he high profile past college basketball. So how do you coach a guy like that and maximize what he is and what he can provide to this basketball team?
Yeah, I mean, Baba's my guy. And I think people thought we were crazy to think we could get two guys after the combine.
Yeah.
And we held out for Baba, and I think Kentucky, Kansas State, Wake Forest, we ended up getting Baba, even waiting till after the combine. Even Ken Evans we got after the combine. You swing on those two, it's a completely different basketball team. And it's nice for me to hear that people think Baba is that talented, because I kind of shut the world out. And if anything, I feel a little bit like he's been underappreciated. He's the only guy in our league that was invited to an NBA combine and came back to school. Every other kid from that combine that came back to school went to a football conference, a Power 5 football conference. He did not. And that's really unique. And so the NBA has already said, you're close enough to being drafted that we want you to come. And I think he's that good. And so if other people are saying that, I don't have to care,
they definitely are.
If they are, then it makes me happy, because I don't want him to be punished because he chose our staff, he chose his school, and he chose me. That's not what I want. I want that to be doubled down, and then he performs and ends up getting drafted.
Sure.
And my hope is that we'll have multiple NBA players here in my time. We did at Baylor and Gonzaga, and it would be a wonderful dream come true if Baba was one of them.
Baba personally talked about, like, he did not want to talk about him. He did, because he's awesome at this, but he kept saying, hey, I think that my job is probably going to be easier, because look at the depth and look at the guys that we have on this basketball team. I know that your vision was to make this well-rounded in multiple areas, but it seems like there is some appreciable, unbelievably talented depth across the board here on this roster. Has it shown to you so far through the fall?
Yeah. I mean, if you just go through the number of guys who have averaged double digits for their last spot, we're doing all right. We have multiple point guards. We got 5 guys who can shoot 40% from 3. We've got 6 guys between 6'5" and 7'1" with 7+ wingspans. Like, we had these things that you tick off. And you can get all emotional in the portal and take things personally, but you've got to move past your emotions and go to your plan. And I'm glad that Baba likes the plan, because the plan wasn't just to get good players. It was to get pieces that fit. And I hope the players look at each other and see, the coaches knew what they were doing. And they brought us here because not only are we good players, but we fit well together.
Yeah.
And then they're more likely to share if they think it makes sense. And I hope they do. I think they do. At least it seems they do in practice.
I'm always fascinated, just because like I'm in this world, but I'm not in this world when it comes to the portal and building rosters. And you as the coach, your priority is you want to develop the talent and you want to win basketball games. And I mean, in the portal, it's going to be filled with guys too that want to get theirs, because they want to make sure that they're putting up these tangible numbers and people see that and there's film, all that. How can you as the coach delineate the guys who are looking for theirs, or the guys who, they want to be developed and they ultimately, they'll want to play deep into March at their new basketball program?
Yeah, well, first of all kids want to play deep into March.
Sure.
I think in some ways we villainize them because of the portal. They're still like we were when we were kids. They want to win.
Right.
Okay. I would say the second piece to that is almost everyone we recruited is from a friend. So we got the truth about them. And they came from people we either know personally or we believe in personally. So like Ken Evans, for example, he's SWAC player of the year, 19 points a game. He could come in here and just be really, really selfish. Well, his coach at Jackson State, Mo, was Isaiah's workout coach when he went through the NBA Combine. And Mo told Isaiah, Ken's a great guy. He's a great kid. He just wants to win. He wants to taste what that is. And that's what Ken has been. And you could go down each recruitment, TA's relationship with Leland. Some of the Lithuanians are from the same agency that Jeremy Sohan is. It's just over and over again. Most of this comes from our relationships.
Yeah.
If you have to start recruiting outside your relationships, you're going to get to a really bad spot. And when you get so desperate that you'll just take anything, then you make mistakes. And I don't know how good we're going to be. I think we're going to be okay. But I don't think we made mistakes or got impatient. I think we recruited from people that we trust. And we're just going to have to keep doing that.
It's such a unique staff that you put together from so many different backgrounds. And talking with Ken Evans, he said, like, FAU, we were talking, I was interested, but then Isaiah Austin called my high school coach, and then it became really real for me. Yeah. I mean, how big a benefit, like the staff is just so versatile, but having Isaiah Austin as part of this thing, like that's a name and a face that true basketball fans appreciate when you guys are rolling through everywhere.
Yeah. What are you going to tell Isaiah?
Right.
He's been the number one player in the country.
Right.
Apart from his health, he was an NBA draft pick. Every bit of lottery talent.
Yep.
And not only has he gone through extreme success, but he's gone through extreme pain. And he's had that gift taken from him. And when he calls you and says, I know what it feels like to be you, and I know what it feels like to lose the thing you love the most, let us take care of you. And then when he tells them, Coach Jakus is a guy that loved me when I lost everything. I mean, come on. What do I got to say?
You can't argue with that, right?
What do I have to say at that point?
Right.
I got to show them that the system's going to work for their game, and that what Isaiah and Eric and Obim and these former players that I've been lucky enough to coach, what they say about us is true. And we are lucky. And it's, same thing. We tried to be versatile on purpose. You look at our staff, it was intentional. We went outside the box. We were a little younger. We have some former players, but we've also got people who are in the NBA. And then we hired a D2 absolute stud. We hired somebody from here who's coaching the Final Four. Like, I was deliberate in making sure that, and sometimes I'm the dumbest guy in the room. And if you're really humble, then you're going to hire staff members that are better than you. And I don't have a problem saying that. And every single one of our staff members is better than me at something. And it's our job just to be unified, and that's where I come in.
Man,
to keep us unified. In
every single walk of life, what you just said is so important. That resonated for sure. Last thing, and I want to talk about the schedule, the non-conference. You had said when you came in, we want something that's going to be challenging. We want something that is going to, if we successfully navigate it, have us in an at-large position going into the conference season. It seems like, without question, that was accomplished, that whole process, and being able to architecturally build that up. What was that process like?
Yeah, that was probably harder than recruiting, to be honest. AD Aditya, the one he was working for the Suns prior to coming here. We were at Baylor together. He did the schedule. A lot of people didn't want to play us.
I'm sure.
A lot of people didn't want to answer the phone. And we did some things that were probably not very smart. Like, you don't win a game at Michigan State. That doesn't happen. You know, you got to take risks at UCF, go on the road at a Big 12 school. You got to play a Thanksgiving tournament. But the thing about the math right now is if you go to a place and lose, it's no longer counted as a negative.
Right.
It's a 0 or a positive.
Yep.
When it comes to the mathematics.
There's no downside.
There is no downside. So Gonzaga plays Baylor at a neutral. The loser is not penalized. The winner is extremely rewarded.
Right.
So you need 5 or 6 swings at quad ones where you're not going to be penalized, but you'll be rewarded. And you know this last year. They win a Thanksgiving tournament and they beat Arizona.
And that got him in the tournament.
If those two things didn't happen.
Correct.
But you know what Dusty had to do? He had the guts to go play Arizona on a neutral. Tommy's a heck of a coach. That's my friend. Like, he's a heck national coach of the year. Like, they're really good. They had 3 draft picks, I think, the year before. So you got to do it.
Yeah.
And all the guys that don't do it, they might have a record that looks good. But this isn't 10 years ago where 20 wins gets you in a tournament.
Right.
The math gets you in the tournament. And I didn't like any bit of it. But I also am not going to go against the math and then be in a position where it's not even an option for us. And, you know, AD did a great job. And we had to be really patient on some things. And every coach that played us, I have a ton of respect for. It's a really hard schedule. But we'll be prepared for league play. And then if it works, we can be at large. If not, we've got to win a tournament at the end of the year. But I'd rather give us 2 chances than one.
I mean, you make a great point. Like, last year's non-conference was insane. This year's non-conference is insane. But when you're this school, that just because this school is at the profile it is now, there's at least a chance of getting the phone answered by coaches who get it, who are in, like, I think Tom Izzo has benefited from the math as well over the years. He gets it. And that makes sense that he would answer the phone for you.
He has the guts to do this. He's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's one of my favorites, to be honest. I mean, he played Indiana State last year. And it helped his math.
Yep.
And Indiana State's one of those teams like FAU that just, you know, really was special last year. And so we're trying to be special. You got to play hard games. And I'm not going to tell you we're winning any of them, but I'm telling you that we know that we have to do it if we want a chance. And so we're going to show up, do the best we can, and we're going to take a run at it.
Oh, one more question. I promise this is the last one. You start the year against Indiana State, but you do so in Ohio, and you do so at an Athletes in Action venue. And there were some fans initially that they're like, they hear new gym and then they see photos of it and like, wait, but it is a cool new facility. And again, Athletes in Action, you owe, and you have talked about how you owe so much of your career, your path through basketball to Athletes in Action. How did that opportunity come about to play Indiana State there? Yeah,
well, AIA is a Christian organization, and John Wooden was a Christian guy. And so his family gave AIA the rights to his name to build a building at their headquarters in memory of him, and then to have a little museum attached to it. And so the first reveal of that publicly and use of it on television will be the event that we're in.
That's cool.
And so in honor of what AIA has done in my life, and then my faith and how I combine it in sport and what they taught me, and then in honor of John Wooden and what he's done for the game, we're going to go play to open the season. And last year, Baylor, we opened against Auburn, which I thought was unbelievably difficult, but good for both teams. And it was in the neutral in South Dakota, and it was a great thing. And so to play Indiana State in the same kind of situation, I think will be really good for us. You got to win neutral games in a tournament and in a national, the NCAA tournament. In order to be good, it'll give us a good neutral. But it's meaningful on so many levels for me. And I didn't initially want to do it, but just because of how many hard games we have. But after thinking about it, even praying about it, I was like, this is something we got to do. So we did it. And I'm thankful for it. It's kind of near your home, kind of.
Yeah.
Not all the way up near Valpo in Chicago, but we get a Midwest game out of it, and Indiana State will be a good opponent. But more than anything, I just think it's personal history for me.
See, and that's cool. And I think that it allows everything to kind of come full circle for you, which is really, really awesome. So a lot to digest there from FAU head coach John Jakus. Feel free to listen back twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Get a feel, immerse yourself. John Jakus leads his FAU basketball team onto the floor on the 4th of November, that Monday, from Xenia, Ohio, the brand new John Wooden Fieldhouse. Florida Atlantic Voice presented by our title sponsor, Robes Law Group. They are in the community for you. It is Robes Law Group, ROBES, robeslawgroup.com. Robes Law Group offices Delray Beach. They're putting the community first. They're in the community for you. Robes Law Group, ROBES, robeslawgroup.com. Again, the presenting sponsor of the Florida Atlantic Voice. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast to the Florida Atlantic Voice. The only insider podcast in the FAU athletic sphere is right here on the Florida Atlantic Voice. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Tell your friends. And FAU basketball season, to the time of recording, is just over a week away. This has been the Florida Atlantic Voice. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.